meets resistance in Saskatoon, where some residents oppose a safe injection site.
The latest on the court action against Indigenous peoples occupying their own land to block big oil.
I want to see people happy. I want to see my own people happy.
And the Star Blanket Cree Nation mourns the loss of an iconic elder.
Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward.
And I'm Melissa Ridgen.
The city of Saskatoon is considering opening the first safe injection site in the province. But not everyone thinks the site, which will be in a residential area in the city, is a good idea. APTN's Priscilla Wolf has that story.
Aid Saskatoon bought this building and submitted a proposal with the federal government to open a safe consumption site here. Jason Mercury says the city needs a site to help people with addiction issues to stay safe.
It's the Indigenous population, and people that access our services currently 82% are Indigenous. But we'd like to, we also don't want to stigmatize the population and say that Indigenous people are more susceptible or anything like that. Just currently, that's the current makeup, and but the big factor is drug use, and so that's the big factor. Big driver is shared drug equipment.
Saskatoon Police Chief Troy Cooper says the Saskatoon City Police supports the safe consumption site in the Pleasant Hill neighborhood.
Well, we do have a position on supervised consumption sites, and actually it's the same position that we have for all harm reduction initiatives. And so the police in Saskatoon support harm reduction initiatives if they are seen as a funnel to other services.
The site is located in a core area of the city in a residential area with schools nearby, and that's a problem for Shirley Eisbister, president of the Central Urban Métis Federation Incorporated, with their offices just up the block. She's worried about the safety concerns, especially for children and the elderly in the area.
There wasn't enough process done prior to making that decision so that, the community could be involved and maybe help find a solution. I mean, you have St. Mary's School, you have Pleasant Hill School, you've got the seniors' home, you've got St. Paul's Hospital. That area is already faced with so many challenges in this core area.
Eisbister isn't against the idea of a safe injection site, but thinks the city needs to find a better location.
Do I believe that, Saskatoon should have a safe consumption site? Yes, I do. But I don't believe that it should be in the Pleasant Hill area, where already we have so much poverty and gang activity.
The Central Urban Métis Federation also wants to know if the Saskatoon City Police will increase services to the area if the consumption site is open. The police chief says they will.
What we'd like to see happen is sort of try to predict as best we can what resources are going to be required, and they will include things like private security, they'll include things like community groups, and of course an increased police presence.
If Aid Saskatoon is successful in their federal funding, they hope to have a safe consumption site in this neighborhood by the fall. Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
As part of the National Day of Action on the Overdose Crisis, people from cities across the country marched the streets demanding solutions. APTN's Tina House covered the march in Vancouver and has this story.
It looks like a parade you would see in any town or city for special occasions, except this parade is a somber one. Many here have lost loved ones to the drug overdose epidemic gripping the country. Sarah Blythe works at the Overdose Prevention Society. She says doing drugs is dangerous.
There's more lethal drug supply, and all across Canada. So it used to be sort of a smaller thing, but now it's just all of the drug supply is filled with all kinds of stuff, including fentanyl, but also rat poisoning and everything else. They're just stepping on it to make money.
According to the federal government, 10,300 people have lost their lives in Canada from a drug overdose in the last year. NDP Member of Parliament Jenny Kwan says, from small towns to big cities, drug overdoses can affect anyone.
I still don't understand why the federal Liberal government won't declare a national health emergency. The truth of the matter is that we have a crisis on our hands. People are dying. They're not only just dying here in the downtown east side, but they're dying in communities across the country, rural, urban. It is happening.
And hundreds of people marched through the streets of downtown Vancouver, carrying signs and riding on homemade floats to the Vancouver Art Gallery, where a rally was planned. Their message is clear. They need help.
We got to be asking all levels of government for more support. We need safe supply now.
Daphne Pierre came to the rally to share her own story.
I'm here on behalf of my son Nathaniel, who lost his life with fentanyl overdose on December 16, 2018, just before Christmas. I didn't even have a Christmas because sorry. He turned 37 on Sunday.
Despite her heartache over the loss of her son, she has advice for other parents in the same situation.
Just go find your children, go talk to them. Even if they're really bad, just talk to them. Don't ignore them. Don't say, oh, I don't want to talk to him, he's a bad drug addict. No, just go see them. Find out where they are.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
In British Columbia, all contempt charges have been dropped against 14 protesters who were arrested in January in Wet'suwet'en Nation. Enforcing a court injunction, RCMP took down the Gittenden checkpoint where protesters were blocking workers from accessing the proposed pipeline area. All 20 elected band councils along the route approved the project. The Wet'suwet'en Nation's highest hereditary chiefs say they have jurisdiction and don't want any pipelines built. Hereditary Chief Namok says yesterday's win is a victory for all people.
I was losing faith in our justice system. I am glad it still works for us as Indigenous people, us as British Columbians, us as Canadians, and it proves that the law is on our side. We have done nothing illegal except protect our territories as we see fit, and the courts agree. But me as a high chief, I have to be aware that this is not the end. We'll win these wars. We'll win this battle, but they're going to make us really, really suffer.
A well-known and respected Saskatchewan elder has passed on. We're going to look back on his life later in the show.
But first, here's tomorrow's weather forecast. Here's a look at Wednesday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. Showers and +9 for Fredericton, snow and 2 above in St. John's. -2 under sunny skies for Nain, +1 with snow in Cartwright. Sunny skies across Quebec, 11 above in Val-d'Or and Montreal. 11 under sunny skies for Toronto, 13 in Ottawa. +8 and showers in Thunder Bay, 10 above for Sioux Lookout. 10 under sunny skies for Thompson and Puckatawagan, 10 with rain in God's Lake, 15 above for Winnipeg and Gimli, showers in 12 in Brandon, rain and 16 for Regina and Saskatoon, 19 above in Swift Current, rain and 14 for Meadow Lake, +12 in La Ronge. Welcome back. Young people from the Atikamekw Nation took part in a special panel on languages at the University of Quebec in Montreal. The goal was to share what language has done for their culture and why it's so important. Sophie Claude Miller reports.
First Nations in the province of Quebec have different realities than most of their fellow Québécois, even if both cultures have been fighting to preserve their respective languages.
Où en est la situation de la langue atikamekw dans la nation atikamekw? Est-ce que les gens la parlent beaucoup?
Dans la communauté de Manawan, la langue atikamekw est enseignée encore au primaire et il y a des cours de langue atikamekw au secondaire. Les jeunes parlent beaucoup la langue atikamekw ainsi que les aînés.
Claudie Ottawa is working with a non-Indigenous linguist to teach her mother tongue at the collegial level at the only Indigenous college of the Quebec province, the Kiuna Institute.
Je voulais surtout qu'on présente le projet de Kiuna et qu'on veut un peu ce qu'on fait maintenant. Ce sont des cours de la langue qu'on donne au niveau collégial. C'est vraiment un grand pas qu'on a franchi. Alors je pense que peut-être que ça va inciter d'autres nations à vouloir intégrer des cours de leur langue à l'institution QNA. C'est vraiment, je trouve que c'est un grand pas, il faut le partager à tout le monde.
Jamie Echaquan Dubé is with the Assembly of First Nation Youth Council. She was in Paris when UNESCO announced that 2019 was going to be the year of Indigenous languages. She says she strongly believes that partnerships with non-Indigenous can create allies for generations to come.
C'est la revitalisation de notre culture. C'est pour les Autochtones. Mais il faut créer des ponts. Je pense que c'est dans cet aspect-là qu'on peut créer des ponts et comme devenir des alliés et comme essayer de ensemble avancer.
Most agree still a lot of work needs to be done to preserve the Indigenous languages for future generations. But many communities are taking action to do so. These youth of the APTN Nation agree that sharing their language and culture with non-Indigenous can bring positive relationships forward. Sophie Cole-Miller, APTN National News, Montreal.
Now to the other side of the country, to the small village of Teslin, Yukon, where a group of students are trying to help preserve their Tlingit language and culture. Luke Smith has more.
Teslin, Yukon is a small community about a 2-hour drive south from its capital of Whitehorse. It's home to about 125 people, mostly Tlingit. The speed limit in town is 30 kilometers, and one of its RCMP vehicles is made out of plywood. Its school plays a big part in the community, which has about 50 kids enrolled from kindergarten to grade 8 and is supported by the community's elders. One of the challenges the community faces is the preservation of its inland Tlingit language.
Figure out which one is either the greatest or the least.
We created a website based off the Teslin Tlingit language, and we just kind of wanted to showcase the culture within the community and the people, and we worked with elders and the Tlingit teachers, and the students did all the work for the website. They did all the audio. They created the website. They wrote everything.
Dawson.
63.
Grade 7 student Dawson Baker says the language is the culture.
It's what brings everyone together, our culture. It brings people together from all around Alaska, the Yukon, just brings us together. So if we don't have that Tlingit traditions and culture, then we're just basically lost.
Dawson transcribed the words of O Canada into Tlingit for the website.
It's a pretty difficult song. People say it differently because there's multi dialects of Tlingit. Sometimes they spell it differently and say it a little bit differently. It's tiny because some are from like the more south, some are more east or west or north. So it just changes a little bit how they say words.
Another of the site's contributors is up-and-coming photographer Justice Aubuchon. She says the project has inspired her creativity, but laments the struggle of most photographers just starting out.
I like taking pretty photos of nature, stuff like that. It's pretty cool, and I haven't really gotten paid for any of that yet, but I'm working on it.
Wakina is Dawson's Tlingit name. He came to Teslin from New York with his parents when he was just 9 months old and says he's been back times to visit. He also says he identifies with the Tlingit culture and its ways of life.
If I could choose to stay here and never go to New York, or go to New York and never come here, I would choose Teslin. Because everyone's so warming and open, and everyone is just welcoming to me, and everyone treats you as a brother, as a sister, as family, and it's very nice to see that everyone cares out and looks out for you.
And on this day, Elder Sam Johnson drops by to congratulate the class for their hard work. And oh yeah, they're the recent winners of the National Park's Coolest School Contest, and they're off to a week's vacation in Manitoba this June.
Our young people need support. If you could help a little bit there, that really counts. Because each and every child have something to offer, and we all do as human. Everyone's got something to offer.
Some of my kids have never even been on a plane, so it's really exciting for them to get to go on this trip. they're already asking me, like, who can we sit by, and is there going to be movies on the plane, and it's really cute, so.
Okay, so we have
Luke Smith, APTN National News, Teslin, Yukon.
A big trip to Gladstone.
Yeah, well, it said they'll be for a week in Manitoba. Hopefully they can come by APTN
yeah,
too.
come visit the studio. Okay, well, it's time for us to take a quick break, but stick around. We've got more news to come.
But first, here's a look at the rest of Wednesday's weather forecast. Here's the rest of Wednesday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. Sunny and 14 above for high level. Rain and 13 for Fort McMurray. Plus 17 under sunny skies for Medicine Hat. 15 in Lethbridge. Showers and 12 for Victoria, Vancouver, and Campbell River. 15 with showers in Fort Nelson. 7 and rain in Dease Lake. Plus 2 in Old Crow. 11 above for Mayo. 15 above for Fort Liard and Trout Lake, plus 2 in Yellowknife. Minus 16 for Sax Harbor, minus 12 for Pawlatuck. Minus 10 in Baker Lake and Chesterfield with snow on the way, 19 below. Minus 18 in Resolute and Arctic Bay. Welcome back. Well, what is it like growing up in a community in the Arctic where to get anywhere else you have to fly? In the small community of Pangertung, our reporter Charlotte Mort-Jacobs caught up with youth to talk about how isolation affects their everyday lives.
Welcome to Pangertung, a place where true north, strong and free isn't found on a t-shirt, but is an actual lived experience. It's also a place of hardships. In the spring of 2018, a dozen youth attempted suicide here. The crisis caught the attention from Southern media. And while everyone asked how such a tragedy could happen, no one asked the kids that live here what everyday life was like in the isolated community. Denise Nauyuk is a natural leader.
Maybe because I'm not shy, like to talk in front of people.
She's the president of Pang's Youth Council. Like other students, Nauyuk is planning to go down south to attend university. But dreams of academia didn't come easy.
I dropped out when I was in grade 10, but then seeing people my age, they were graduating and all that, and I felt like I had to go back, so I did. And now I'm really close to finishing.
She believes it's not that youth don't wish to graduate, they just have trouble attending class. Many here told APTN they don't connect with the curriculum, which is not rooted in Inuit values. Same goes for having little to do in town.
We don't have a youth center. We don't have a lot of places to go. People usually just hang out outside the school, the stores, arena, but I think it's closed now.
This youth center was forced to close after federal funding dried up in 2015.
Who do I give it to after?
Since then, Eric Lawler, the former manager of the center, says youth have gotten into trouble out of sheer boredom.
It's the idle hands. They're looking for something to do, and sometimes what they find to do is not always the best thing to get into. And
Lawler is Métis and originally from New Brunswick, but has lived in Pang for 15 years. He's a father of 5 and is worried about the environment his kids are growing up in.
places to go, places to hang out, socialization. Like, people need a place to socialize. There's nowhere to go and just relax.
There's a price to isolation, an extremely high cost of living here.
I'd say I'd be rich if it wasn't for the cost of living. Like, that takes all our money, like, for food, and like, even if I can't travel down south, that's just too expensive. Like, take all 5 of us down, it's over 15 grand roughly, just to get to Ottawa.
And housing options are very limited.
The biggest issue, I think, is the overcrowdedness, where you're dealing with sometimes 2, 3 families, 13 to 14 people living under the same roof, 3 bedrooms, like, trying to find a place to sleep, like, and the amount of food that they go through as well, like, the conflict that can create
But it's not just infrastructure the hamlet lacks. There is also a need for trained professionals. Pang doesn't have a full-time physician. When Lawler's 10-month-old son had a fever, he had no option but to be medevac to Iqaluit.
It just adds to more health problems. Like, I know two people the night before I arrived at the boarding home, two people had to walk around town all night because they didn't have a place to go.
Having a traveling doctor that only visits every few months is just one of the things he wants to change. Lawler, who now works as the community economic developer, is putting all his energy into improving housing options.
More houses need to be built, self-sustaining houses where the expenses and utilities and everything isn't as extravagant as they are.
You can't paint everyone with the same brush here. Each youth has challenges growing up in a remote Nunavut community.
They really look up to me. They always tell me that they're not going to be sure what they're going to do when I'm done high school.
But it's those like Nayak who understand the remoteness, listen to the concerns, and plan to go to great lengths to resolve them. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Pangertung.
A respected elder and former national chief has passed away. Noel Star Blanket died on Monday in Regina from complications due to diabetes. He was the elected chief of the National Indian Brotherhood from 1976 to 1980, and the NIB is now, of course, the Assembly of First Nations. He could be brash at times, as shown in his National Film Board documentary. There's some strong language in here.
I want to see people happy. I want to see my own people happy. I want to see the white man kiss my Indians' ass on my reserve.
Noel Star Blanket's wake and funeral will be on Thursday and Friday in Lebret, Saskatchewan.
I've observed how people love to talk. They'll talk about reconciliation. And I constantly admonish them to remember the words of Mr. Justice Sinclair, now Senator Sinclair. The 94 recommendations are calls to action. They're not calls to talking.
Definitely sad news to leave you with tonight.
No kidding.
That is your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca.
And you can join us tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time as we put a number of issues in focus tomorrow, all of the political nature, including the outcome of tonight's Alberta election. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.
And I'm Dennis Ward. Stick around for the Laughing Drum with Tim Fontaine. That's next. Have a great night.